The pipeline is proposed to go right through the Wolustuk territory. The high, not possibility, but when that this pipeline will leak, it would leave a devastation to our rivers and lakes and streams and brooks. So that's why we are very firm and forward in rejecting this proposed pipeline. We are actually standing in Wolustuk territory. This is an old burial site here next to the Wolustuk River. This site was here for thousands of years, and we've come and do ceremonies here to respect the ancestors and so on. So,
can we talk a little bit about this monument here and what it represents?
Yes, this is a monument of the memory of Doris Marie Aquin. She attended the Shupanegni Indian Residential School, and she was one of the survivors. Her place of burial is pretty much unknown, so that's why they put this plaque here. It's going to take time, but the first huge step that Canada and the provinces take ownership of what happened, and to take that responsibility that it was a policy that was spearheaded by the government and in coordination with various churches, Catholic and Protestant, and both of those denominations have to take responsibility. Being an educator, I think it's really important for the schools to start teaching about the truth of what happened in the residential schools, plus the stealing of land and the rape of the earth and the pollution of the water. Like, we need to talk about those things, and those are real, those are factual. We can't hide behind those things anymore. The evidence is here, and I like to talk about the murdered and missing Aboriginal women across Canada too, and it's such a disgrace that this federal government's not wanting to put forward investigation, inquiry on this important thing. It's a really sad thing.
How does education within the First Nations communities need to be revised, and what are some ways that allies can help to foster a change in that regard?
You know, being a language curriculum developer and a teacher, I think the first major step that the federal provincial government has to take is to put forward a policy to rejuvenate our language, and by doing that they need to build immersion schools, because we are on the verge of losing our language within the next several years. You know, anybody below the age of 55 are not speakers.
In the West and in the central parts of Canada, the treaties that were made between the colonial settlers and First Nations constituted an exchange of land. How is it different here on the Atlantic coast?
The Mi'kmaq, Passamaquoddy, and the Penobscot and the Abenaki are part of a larger confederacy called the Wabanaki Confederacy. When our 5 nations signed those treaties, they were just based on peace and friendship. That there was no land surrendered, there was no resource surrender. The main focus of those treaties were to keep peace.
How has that been practiced since that treaty has begun?
Our nation, the Wolustuk Nation, has not broken one treaty, where the government has broken every one of the treaties. So they don't recognize the treaties in the way that they're documented or read. You know, Canada has probably the most discriminatory act in the world, called the Indian Act, that still controls our communities and our people. So that's why I believe that the federal and provincial government just wants to deal with the ban-elected officials, because they can control them using that policy.
Could you explain how this independent government that you are a part of works within itself, and also how it tries to make a difference in this community that doesn't want to officially recognize them?
Well, how the Wolustuk Grand Council works is that it takes the views of all the membership. It's based on consensus from the clan mothers plus the sub-chiefs or the sub-leaders of each clan. The Grand Chief is directed by the people and especially the clan mothers. We don't get funded through governments. We are pretty much raise our own funds through different activities and events that we do. We do this because we love our land, we love our children and our grandchildren, and the place where we live. You know, the river, the woods, the trees, the animals, and so on. It's not for any publicity or not for any power. We do it out of deep conviction for our being Wolustuk. In the last several years, because of the threats that was in Mi'kmaq territory up to Wolustuk on the fracking issue 4 years ago, the Grand Council stood firmly that we would support them to protect their lands and their water. So anyway, what we done is we actually got together with local groups who are part of environmental groups, and then later on the formation of the local chapter of Council of Canadians. We've kind of stood shoulder to shoulder with them in going to Wolustuk and standing firm, protesting against the government's policies on hydraulic fracturing. So we invited several other different organizations plus local farmers and fishermen and so on to be part of this Peace and Friendship Alliance group. So we're making some noise, and we're standing firm.
You've just talked about your allies and how there was a bit of a process in educating and bringing about a real understanding. What are some of the strategies that anyone who considers themselves an ally can use to show the proper respect and know when and where and how to stand in solidarity, and when to listen and to appreciate the wisdom?
The first step that our allies had to take and really believe what they're saying is that this territory was never surrendered. And if you look at BC, when the Chilcotin people took the province to court, you know, they won because they stood together and they stood strong, and they had allies with them, local township and so on.
How could people go about showing solidarity and empathy in a constructive way, rather than understanding history and then trying to withdraw from it to avoid feeling sad?
Well, as you know, young or middle-aged people of the who are non-native, I think one of the main solutions or the actions that they can do is to pressure their government into to making things right. And you know, communication's the key to solve things. We have to stop carrying all that damaged events and the activity and those problems that occurred years and years ago from generation to generation. It's just because when you carry them, you can't move forward. You have to stop going so damn fast. So you're going too fast forward and you're missing a lot of the truth that's happened. Slow down, stop, and start going backwards. And possibly someday the two nations, the white nation and the native nation, can meet in the middle somewhere, and they can sit down and talk about the truth. You know, I remind a lot of my non-native friends that, you know, like when we pause or when we stop and think, I know they don't have to talk. Quiet's good, you know, you can, you know, time to think and process things, good. But when you continuously are electing leaders of this country who don't want to do that, it's pretty hard for our people to be patient. You know, we're a bunch of patient people. But looking at the Idle No More movement, you know, those young people are, you know, they're pissed, you know, and they don't want to be trampled on no more. You know, when when we have a high case of suicide amongst our young people, like that's a horrible thing. And you know, they're really concerned. You know, we just had a suicide yesterday in one of the communities here. So you know, a young woman. So you know, because they've lost hope.
Have there been some meaningful actions that are taking place, and is the mobilization starting to happen? Oh
yes, I attended the climate change march in Toronto, and I was mentioning to some people that this is the first time that I've seen so many people that I didn't see before. So it's growing. I do think that things will change, and I just hope more people would take climate change seriously. I hope they really think about, you know, clean jobs, you know, the green energy jobs that can be here in our own territory, solar and wind, and even, you know, using the tides here. Like we got the world's biggest tides in the Fundy, using the energy from the tides to generate power. Like what, you know, Europe being the father of colonialism, they're changing, but here that their children are here, that they send here, and they're not changing.
Well, Ron, thank you so much for spending the time and sharing your insight and your wisdom with us. It's greatly appreciated, and we hope that others will learn from this message and will take a little bit of time to sit and to contemplate and to imagine ways in which they can act as allies and can meet this shared nation and this shared territory in a way that benefits us all. So thank you so much, very much appreciated.
Thanks.